some influence in terms of dictating what gets built out. I'm not going to ask you what's coming down the pipe, but in terms of promise and in terms of next opportunities for the advertising technology space in general, is there anything that you're personally particularly excited about?
Again, I think the diversity of connections is the exciting thing. But we know at this point there might be a programmatic display component, there might be a rich media and video component, there'll be possibly separate components for desktop versus mobile. Then there might be a site analytics, not ignoring Facebook and Google and YouTube that are relatively discrete environments because their data is not entirely liquid. And then you've got Amazon. So all of these different things are currently sitting in quite a separate way, and bringing it together is very difficult. So I'm excited by the industry resolving some of these challenges. We, again, shameless Adform hat, also believe that anything that's being done in those environments has to offer format flexibility to support engaging communication. So high impact units, not just standard letterboxes and things like that. I'm excited actually about getting some of those first steps, which should be remedial, but frankly aren't resolved, because there is still a ridiculous degree of fragmentation in terms of the interoperability and the flexibility in terms of formats and to allow campaigns to be effectively delivered.
It'd be very easy for us to sit here and say that integration challenge, which I think is what you were talking about there, is actually a matter for the Adform engineers to resolve. It feels like there's a very big cultural piece and a big change piece on the client and indeed on the agency side. Do you agree with that? Yes.
Bluntly, not many. I think not very many in the agency world or the marketer world are quite as excited by the ad tech space as I am, which is probably healthy. But I think it's too often being marginalised as something that is not understood for its strategic value, and I think that is changing, and I think that's exciting. So it's not about what's engineered; it's actually what's deployed in market, and what budget holders, specifically marketers, can do to force companies that they're buying inventory from to not put it behind walled gardens.
Message for the present and the future, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a round of applause to Anthony Brooke.
It's okay, I was a bit worried there where you were going with that story. I think that the analogy is a good one, and it's something that I spoke to in an earlier session today, which is that the rise of technology in our business potentially has the capacity to disrupt it in a fairly major way. And the kind of parting words that I gave the group that I left was, don't panic, be true to who you are, and kind of keep your eyes on the prize. And I think that's the advice that I give myself, and I give the advice I give to the people around me, and it's the advice I give to our agency and our partners, in that we can figure this stuff out if we are clear on what the strategic objective is, what the final destination is, and we'll work this stuff out. And I think that there is a tendency that you see on a day-to-day basis of really getting sucked into the tech, getting blinded by the numbers, blinded by the potential capabilities. And, I'm a pretty straightforward kind of person. I can't really deal with complexity, so I've got to simplify it. And the way that I do that in this issue and many other issues in the business is to kind of step back and think, what are we really trying to do here? So I think that the adage, the story, is a good one. It fits the purpose, and I'd certainly agree with that.
So when you think about viewability and transparency in your world, how do you define viewability in Mondelez's world?
We're really struggling, I think, from a digital perspective. Every single partner we've talked to gives us a different definition of viewability, whether you're talking to industry bodies, whether you're talking to agencies, whether you're talking to the big titans in the industry, and it's just making our heads spin. So at the moment, we are figuring out what our big bets are in the business, and viewable video is a huge bet for us. We think that video is where all of the innovation is happening on all the platforms. They're all innovating like crazy in the video space. We think it's one of the most engaging mediums with which to captivate consumers. So video is a big bet for us, and we're conjoining that with viewable video. So there's no point investing in internet video if people aren't seeing it. So I think that's the bet. And at the moment, the position we're at is figuring out what the right metric, the right criteria, the right measurement technology is.
Those are two very big topics.
Indeed.
Transparency has certain issues around that, and then viewability is a much separate thing.
Yep.
I think on the transparency side, we, as a company, we have a policy of being very open and honest. And your point about transparency really being about trust, we work very hard to develop a level of trust by having relationships where we give clients access to whatever level of information they need. For me, the transparency issue is particularly a tricky one because it feels like it's become such just the buzz within the industry. And from my perspective, it's much more of an individual conversation really to have with clients. And depending on the levels of how much transparency they want to see or you want to provide, I mean, there are certain costs associated with that. There's manpower issues, there's hard costs, there's everything else. Clients should be able to get whatever level they want, and we should provide that. So it's, from a transparency perspective, it feels like that topic to me is a bit overblown, and it really belongs more with the relationships. On viewability, we're very optimistic about the opportunities with digital, and in particular because of technology and measurement and everything else. It really represents almost a new frontier in terms of what we can understand. So looking at different ways to measure that and looking at an aspirational goal of 100% viewability, I think is the right thing to do. And it feels like we're able to do that because of the technologies that can let us do that. I realize there are monumental issues with that in terms of coding and working with the publishers and everything else, but aspirationally, it's the right thing. So we are aiming towards that, and at the same time, we're looking at specific needs of specific clients. And we do a lot of internal research on the value of levels of viewability and the impact on whatever that action item is. Ideally, it's not something like a click-through or something that's simple. But we're looking at all kinds of different models to understand that. I think your point, though, on understanding what works is a big one, because at some point, it's all going to come down to multi-touch attribution on everything anyway.
Yep.
And the sooner we can get there, I think that makes a lot of these issues kind of go away. Whether it accounts for fraud or if we can reduce fraud and everything else, once we have the grail of really understanding how everything works together to achieve whatever that goal is, ideally sales, a lot of these conversations, I think, are not as important.
But
it's very good because I've just been told I can have whatever I want. So,
Yes, well,
thank you, Jim. I'm sorry, go on.
So Unilever's had a pretty strict view, I believe, of viewability, right, with regards to really only paying when ads are 100% viewable. What's your definition? How are you guys thinking about viewability and also the topic of transparency?
So, I mean, transparency and viewability, I think, so on a broader perspective, it comes back to kind of, honest, be true to yourself, I think, Gerry, is what you said. Now, when I was a kid, my dad used to say, you get what you pay for, right, and keep your word, right? So if you load that out, then you should get what you pay for. You buy a car, you want 4 wheels, not 2, to use build on Mark Butterfield's analogy in the earlier session. I mean, the reality here is we make advertising, and I would say good advertising, yeah, that we want our consumers to see, so they respond to that advertising and buy product. Because, let's face it, we're all in the game of selling stuff. So the whole area of transparency and viewability, if the consumer's not, if we're spending the money and the consumer's not seeing the ad, then we're not, you know, why are we spending the money making the ad, and why are we spending the money with media owners to get the ad out there? So I think, you know, the whole debate around viewability, you know, the fundamental point you've got to stay true to is actually the reality is we're making advertising, we are marketing products for a purpose. Now, you know, whether to enrich our consumers' lives or whatever it might be, or make money, I mean, you can dress it up as you want. Bottom line, people should be seeing what you're making, and if you're paying money, you should get what you're paying for. Very simple.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Anyone would argue with that. So that's a great expectation. Why aren't we delivering them as an industry?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons, and I don't know all of the reasons. And we can probably go down and we'll come with a load of different ones. I mean, Gerry made the point earlier, you get a situation where nobody's really quite sure what metric, so we need some leadership in that field. So what metric is it we're actually going to measure it against?
Yep.
Who's responsible? Yeah? Who should lead this? Should it be the client? Should it be the agency? Should it be the bodies, the trade bodies? Actually, the reality is the responsibility for it probably lies with everyone. Right? Because at the end of the day, if you look at the virtuous circle, we spend money, the advertiser, the consumer sees the product, sees the message, the consumer buys the product, we grow, we spend more money. Very simple. So, I think it's in all of our interests, stop mucking about, to actually have a predetermined standard. Someone's got to take some leadership in this position. And we like to think that we are certainly standing up and doing our bit. I've heard a lot of money speak today. There's Volvo, Philips and Boehringer saying exactly the same thing. Come on, let's get on with it, because at the end of the day, we can't carry on in this kind of netherworld with everyone saying, well, it's your job. No, it's your job. Well, actually, it's your job. Yeah? That doesn't help anyone. This is an industry problem, and the fact is that that's all I'm hearing today. Yeah, means we've got to do something about it. I do think we have to be really aware of where this is going up. Yeah? So, television started as a commercial entity in the UK in 1955, I believe. Fraud was still an issue in 1972 when media orders started up, and that's what we did. The internet, in its current format, has been around, 2 or 3 hours, if you want. But nevertheless, it's fast. It's 3 or 4 years, and I agree absolutely. Visible impressions, visible VCPM, all that sort of stuff. TV is evolving. The pace of that and the evolution of that is going to accelerate.
Yep.
Right? Now, then we're going to have, and I know the research intelligence is having some questions around how do we track it on tablets and phones. Now, we need to fix this because the pace of what we call legacy media, I hate that term, but that's also quickening up. So actually, the problem that we're facing now about viewability, well, that's coming to a television set near you.
Yep.
So we should get a move on, actually, because we need to be ready for that wave of trouble when that starts.
Yep.
Because all we're going to do is start analysing everything to the nth degree, which then removes the whole creativity. We need to kind of put the brakes on a little bit and fix some of this stuff, because if we don't, something new and shiny will come up and it will cause us more problems.
So Dom talked about that a bit this morning, the digital integrity or lack thereof, and the result that we're seeing a transformation of TV, which is what you're referencing, right? So should we expect digital dollars have moved, TV dollars have moved to digital because digital was more measurable, right? And we've created a beast as a result. Are we at a point now that we've got more sophisticated set-top boxes that are addressable? We've got OTT devices that are fully addressable. we're getting to really good scale of IP delivery of television, do digital dollars start to shift back to, do digital dollars start to shift back to TV? And as a result, is there even, I mean, you said there's a new potential viewability issue, but is there, right? It's the big screen. It is viewable. There is no fraud.
I would say that the dollars follow the IP. Right? So, and that's been the driver of the gold rush through to these digital platforms. Having said that, I think that the size of the screens, there's been a lot of research recently that says the size of the screens don't matter, it's actually the size of the image on the retina.
That's right.
So I don't see a huge flow back to TV because it's a big screen or it's more addressable. What I do see though is in a slightly murky world of the internet, where if we're not 100% sure about whether it's human traffic or whether it's brand safe or it's viewable, we're going to end up pooling our dollars into those places where the platforms can demonstrate the numbers and they can demonstrate the quality of those environments.
Yeah,
we're seeing that. I don't know if you guys do the same, but we're seeing that now. So the long tail of sites is being cut pretty aggressively from our perspective, and any technical approach to market that obfuscates what we're buying, we're not going to be doing that, right? We're going to retrench back to where we know the eyeballs are there and we know that there's a premiumness to the environment. And unfortunately that tends to be things like the Facebook newsfeed, like the YouTube TrueView pre-rolls, and a number of other kind of premium inventory suppliers. So I think the dangers tend to be, technology that's, hugely beneficial from an automation point of view, but then throws up lots of, we don't really know what's on the other side of that battle, but we're not going to do that.
Do you agree with Dom's point of view?
I think, again, you raise an interesting point on the dollars follow eyeballs and dollars follow effectiveness. And when we talk about who needs to really step up and lead, as we understand, as we manage budgets and shift towards more effective means, if dollars are going away from digital because of the issues of viewability and fraud, it really does put some economic pressure on those parties to fix that.
Sure.
So we may have a natural evolution of whichever company or industry or group stepping up because the flow of dollars might start to change. And that could happen for television, that could happen for anyone, but I think that ultimately, as we get better at modeling and really understanding all of the levers and metrics of how things work, that will change the composition on the other side.
So where does the responsibility of potentially moving away from those fraudulent environments to more trusted environments lie? Does it lie with the brand? Does it lie with the agency? Or both?
I think both to a degree. I mean, we're spending the money, we spend money with our agency partners, and we're really clear about the necessity to be brand safe, to be viewable, and so on and so forth. And all agencies, and all the agencies in this room, have a moral responsibility, actually, to look after the brands they've got. Brand safe is a big issue here as well. You have a moral responsibility. You are the custodian of that brand in a public space. So there's an element, there's a responsibility there. There's a responsibility with the vendor. There's a responsibility with all of the other people who are taking a slug of something in the middle to ensure that the money is delivering what it's supposed to be delivering, which ultimately, to all of us that own brands, is a paying customer through the door. Because that is what feeds the industry. It's the money we spend, and the money we spend comes at all of our pockets. So I think the responsibility for fixing this, as I said at the start, it lies with all of us. And we need to see leadership in this space. And I'm not sure that can come from brands. I mean, I'm sure the Competition Commission would have a few issues if we sat down with proctors and said, okay, what do you think? We're going for this. So I think it has to come from, there needs to be a point of neutrality
Exactly.
in this, because that then has credibility, and stops a lot of vehicle problems for the rest of us. So my plea to these guys is, come on, give us a perspective, give us a point of view, and let's get on with it. Because if we don't, this isn't going to get fixed by just been talking about it. We actually have to do something.
Amazingly, Airbnb, whilst it's a household name today for the most of us, it's only an 8-year-old business. So, I guess what I want to start to talk about and learn from Paul and Lisa is, how do you build a household brand in just 8 years? So it'd be great to hear from you, Paul, around that journey.
Cool. So I'd love to ask the audience here today, how many of you work with a founder-driven company? Yeah, a couple of you guys do. So for those of you who do, you know very well that when you work with the founders, it's really personal. At Airbnb, our 3 co-founders spent about 2 years broke. Right? People told them it was a crazy idea. And so you can imagine when you have that much belief in what you're doing, and you go through that much, it's like a baby to you. So Airbnb to them is like a loving part of their family, and they think about the brand and everything we do with that lens. And so we start with that, and we think about what we've come in 8 years. What you're really seeing is the sort of 2 bookends. We've got these founders who are super passionate, very value-driven. The other side, you have our community. Right? We've got 2.3 million listings on Airbnb in 191 countries and 35,000 cities. So we have a huge amount of people. And you've got those 2 things. So when we're thinking about building our brand, we really have to think about what's our job as marketers. What part of that do we get to play? And I would say that our job is really about empowerment. So empowering our community, having them speak for us, and curation. There's so many great stories that come out on our platform. And so with that in mind, about 2 years ago, we realized that we were moving out of our sort of childhood as a company into our awkward teenage years. And to kind of bring those stories to light and really own that, we needed to build a proper brand team. And so that's when we partnered with Starcom and we built a top-tier brand marketing team to really drive that forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually to pick up on something that Charlie said this morning, they actually went at it a very different way, and that was that they chose Starcom to be the global marketing partner first. And then from there, the Starcom team was actually part of the Airbnb team that was part of the creative review process. And so the Starcom team was in all of the pitch meetings with the creative, and then we're actually part of the selection process. And I think that was just really indicative of understanding media's importance and how it changed and had risen in terms of being able to understand people, identify the right audience segments, and then more importantly, know how to engage them as a community, because that's really what Airbnb is, a community, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Lisa, how does working with a business that's growing at such pace compared to other clients that you have that have been established for decades, how does that differ when you work with such a dynamic company versus ones that have been set in their ways in some respects for such a long time?
Yeah, absolutely, very different. If you actually pick up on what Paul said, so for a founder-driven company, the Starcom team has to have that same personalization, right, as Airbnb does. So the first thing the team did is just literally, and Paul can attest to this, just planted themselves in the office 24/7. And so that they really understood exactly what Airbnb was all about and what really was the higher purpose and vision. So there's that part of it. Then there's the notion of we have to bring the right balance of agility and discipline. So you have to be very agile when working with Airbnb. But at the same time, one of the expertise that we bring is discipline. Is the step back at times to say, does this ladder up to the strategy of what we're trying to accomplish? And we do push them many times to take that step back and a deep breath to make sure that we're on strategy. And so that's definitely been a part of it. And then the other thing, which I absolutely love, which is different than legacy marketers, is the fact that these guys are absolutely fearless. And today, so many legacy marketers are trying to hold on and defend what they have. And these guys are absolutely fearless. They have the passion and their vision, and they just absolutely rush out and embrace it. And I'll actually just tell one story in the US. So Caitlyn Jenner, who I think most people are aware of within the world, so she obviously, her story was going to be honored at the ESPN ESPY Awards. And within the United States marketplace, as soon as that was announced, many marketers started abandoning the broadcast because they did not want to be associated with transgender and with Caitlyn Jenner. Meanwhile, we called up these guys and said, humankind, this is exactly what this is about. And you actually ended up with the iteration that was transkind. And they were absolutely fearless about it, never hesitated for a minute, and you get to run with ideas like that.
Do you think that agility that you mentioned before, do you think that has an infectious nature on the rest of your business? Do you think you maybe, by working with these types of clients, it helps push others?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. This is an on-demand piece of business. I mean, I have hand raisers all the time around the world, obviously, because we do work with them globally who are dying to partner on the business. And it is infectious. And when you see how this team is so fearless, then they take that back to some of our other partners who obviously are legacy, right, clients. And it is absolutely infectious.
Yeah, that's, I mean, we really treat the team like our own. So for better or for worse, I'm amazed by the team for how much pressure we put on them and the hours that they're expected to work. They're basically working a startup while being our media partner.
And we spoke before about community-based brand building, and that's how you've got to where it is. Can you kind of expand a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'll start off with a little story that I think really explains it well. So Bob Blair there in the front, who's one of the people in the Starcom team supporting us, we shared a cab this morning. He shared this funny anecdote. He's probably nervous now. Bob's a good storyteller.
Bob, I'm always nervous.
Yeah. And, so last night he spoke to his son, his 12-year-old son. And his son said to him, "Hey Dad, it's not fair. You get to go to Rome and hang out with your Airbnb client and eat gelato late at night and do all these fun things. And like, what do you guys really do? I mean, Airbnb is a website. All they do is they get a bunch of people to come on and list their homes, and they do all the work. That's amazing. I want a business like that when I grow up." And Bob said, "That's a great idea, son. It's a little more complicated, but that's the right idea. Keep pushing." But there's a core idea in that I think is really brilliant, and that is that he understood that our business is a people business. People think about us as a tech company. They think about this website, this app. And that's important, right? That technology facilitates what we do. But really it's about the people. And so that's what we talk about as our community a lot. And so everything starts with that. When you think about that, and kind of what I mentioned before, the founders of this community, it all comes from that place. And so we think about our community, especially our hosts, as our heroes. So Nike thinks about their heroes as athletes, right? When you see their advertising, you see athletes featured prominently. And they want you to understand that you can achieve your own level of heroism as an individual. We want to really celebrate our community, the hospitality they bring, the way they bring that idea of belonging anywhere, which is more than just a tagline to us. It's a vision, it's a mission, and bring that out to the world. So we're doing everything we can to curate that and to make sure it's clear that that's right.
And in terms of, of course you have hosts everywhere from Antarctica to South Africa. Because of that, how do you maintain global consistency with messaging whilst being locally relevant? Because of course it's an incredibly personal thing to let someone into your home or indeed go into someone else's home. So how do you kind of make that connect?
So I think there's an interesting stat I can share around that. The first thing to think about is this. 86% of people who use Airbnb tell us that they do it to live like a local. Right? They don't come to Airbnb for value. Obviously there's value there. When you look at Airbnb, there's a wide range of experiences. You can come in at the low end, you can come in at the high end like Beyonce. Right? And so people come to choose what they want. When you look at travel, a lot about travel is about commodification, it's offer driven, and we don't do that. Right? We're really talking about that humanity aspect. And what that comes down to is location. It comes down to destinations and people who live there, right? So we really are location first. And so what we do is we think about our campaigns globally. We work with global teams, but we have regional and local offices and teams to try to transcreate everything we do and make sure it's relevant locally. And it's the same with our partners. So we have partners on the media and the creative side in each of those locations as well. And we make sure it's relevant.
Yeah, so we've really, from day one, we built up the global team, obviously based in the US, given Airbnb's headquarters, but then just have the teams around the world very localized, no regional or pan-regional anything, just very localized to be able to take those strategies and bring them not even down to a country or city level, but obviously down to the neighborhood, to the individual person.
in the early days, did Starcom staff use the service? Were they encouraged to rent out their house or go and stay in Airbnb properties to kind of...
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. In fact, most were already heavy users, candidly, in terms of it. Because, as mentioned, obviously, it was only a couple of years ago that they, made the leap to do the brand marketing. So our teams were already heavy users. And then, obviously, that's just increased.
And we've actually got a couple of very short videos that Airbnb have used in a couple of markets, Ireland and France, to connect with that audience.
Yeah, so I think, so again, I touched a bit, I think the sequential messaging and the dynamic is important. I think the other thing is focusing on the different stages of the consumer journey, right? So every marketer has a consumer journey and actually has thousands of consumer journeys based on the different consumers. And people have different barriers depending where they are in the journey. And what data enables us to do is identify the different journeys and where they are in the journey so that we could, again, serve up different messages depending what the barrier, to entry may be. And we have the ability to do that now with data. What I'm really hoping is that more of the content and ad agencies will understand the power of that, right? And the power of doing that and having 10,000 messages, right? Rather than one, because there's a wonderful canvas out there for us to use.
Yeah.
And be more personally relevant, right? Which is the power of the data and one-to-one at scale.
Yeah, I think it's only really just scratching the surface of that.
Totally.
It's relatively straightforward to insert certain things into messaging in real time, be it where you are, for example, find an Airbnb in Birmingham tonight.
Yep.
But that's relatively basic, as you say. It could be tens of thousands, and there's no conceivable reason why it couldn't be millions of creatives for millions of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of build on that though, Jonathan Mildenhauer, our CMO, he talks about this a lot about media connections. And so, our media partner Starcom, they do a lot with us in the creative side. I'm not going to break out a lot of examples right now, but they're bringing creativity to the table. For him, it's all about creativity. He's obsessed with it, and he wants every portion of our team to be adding to that, to be bringing creative ideas, to be challenging, to be thinking through how we can bring that idea of experiences, which is what Airbnb is about, and make sure it comes through in what we're doing. So, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
So beyond utilising location data, what are the kind of the latest innovations that you're getting excited about in terms of applying to your marketing strategies?
Sure, so I think the most important thing is really, there's no silver bullets. We'd all love to know, hey, what's the cool thing Airbnb is going to do? Let's go, try to do it too, right? But more media people, we understand that really you're trying to get the personalization at scale, right? So how can you get that most personalized individual message out? But you need scale to make it pay off. So when we think about our media planning, we really think about 3 buckets. It's now, it's the big things that are going to get us the brand awareness, get us the consideration that we need, make our money work hard. We have a new bucket. So it's the new things we're testing, or those kind of interesting things that will get more personal. And then the next bucket, which is the really small amount of money we'll spend to get that innovation, to push the envelope. There's not going to be scale there, but we have a feeling it's a bet that it'll be big in the future. So to kind of walk through that, if you go to our site and you look for vacation rental properties, so like look in Sonoma or Napa, California, you'll see that we're starting to have virtual tours now. It's like a 360 view versus just a series of pictures. Right, so that's kind of a now example. It's not media, but it relates to that. You may see that come into some of the media. This or the new might do things like VR, right? We're all looking at VR. How does VR fit into that? How are we going to bring the VR experience? And the next would be an example in our latest campaign that we've got these sunglasses from this Australian company. Not sunglasses, but they're like visual glasses used in the cinema. And so when you go out and you look at it, if you lift your head up or you lift your head down, you're getting 2 different experiences. We're sort of showing that duality again that I spoke of earlier, sort of like commodified, like just going somewhere, or going somewhere living like a local, right? So you get both from the same. So we're looking at a lot of those things.
And if you think about it, what Paul has taken us through is new and emerging that allows us to tell a deeper and richer story that is all tied back to the vision of Airbnb, and that therefore is going to result in higher engagement, and in this case, both the host and the guest engagement. But that's what that new emerging technology is allowing us to do, a huge richness there.
So we're probably going to have a a couple of minutes for some questions, but I guess just to round off on this, we've spoken about where people go and where they're going to. You know, where is Airbnb's next stop? Where do they head from here?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. I can't talk about it too much. Here's a couple things I'll share. So, and I think they're pretty self-evident. And I talked about some of them today. First, we're a human power company. So you're going to continue to see us do things that are about people, micro-entrepreneurs. How can we empower that? How can we expand on that? You're not going to see us do other things just because we get ad revenue in the short term, right? It's all going to be about people. The next thing is about experiences. So how can we drive more experience? How can we make people have a more interesting journey, trip, change their life? And so when we look at those two things, extrapolate it out, you can let your imagination go wild. I can't talk too much about it, but that's the direction. And you're going to see a lot of things coming out through this year that empower that. The next big product release and the next big evolution in the Airbnb journey will be in November, so we're going to be sharing that in November.
And part of what I love about that is, and particularly for our industry a lot, everybody sort of wants to bifurcate things, right? Is it the data industry now, and have we lost sight of human or whatever? And it's always going to be an art and science business, and actually as you think about, what we've talked about and what Paul's just talked about, their vision of it is always the combination of both, right? They're going to have the technology of the platform and continue to refine it and localize it, which makes it all seamless and easy for the consumer to use, but you're only going to do that if there's a human connection as to why. And they're so dead on in understanding that that's really the blend of marketing that needs to continue.
Well, I think it's that blend that really helps get that message home, because it's about utilising traditional formats, be it TV, outdoor, augmenting it with digital, and making people feel comfortable. Because as you say, that is the barrier. Once you've broken through that barrier and got comfortable with letting strangers into your house or going to a stranger's house, then you're hooked. And I have 20 times been in a stranger's house.
So to build on both those comments, I think there's one interesting thing to kind of end off with. So at the beginning, I talked about the founders, and I talked about the community. You look at the founders, they are art and science. So two of our co-founders went to one of the top schools in the US for industrial design. They're designers, obsessed with design. That's why our products and our ads and things look the way they do. But the third co-founder, he made his way through Harvard for computer science by running his own businesses. So basically, he was already very successful. He made $1 million or something before going to school. And so you've got this science, this super entrepreneur guy, and you've got these designers. When you bring those things together, it's interesting. And I think one of the biggest takeaways I've had in my time at Airbnb so far is this story. So every Sunday night, Brian sends us out an email. It's whatever's on his mind, some thoughts, something he learned early on in our culture. And he sent out this one email, and the headline, the subject line said, "Find your opposite." And you're kind of like, okay. And when you read through it, what he said was, everyone should find a person to work with, to partner with, who has the same values as they do, but thinks the opposite way. Because even though you're going to have tensions, even though you're going to have those tough moments, you're going to trust each other, and you're going to come up with a much better answer. Don't go and find people who think like you, you're going to get the same answer. So not push to that more difficult answer.
So we've probably got time for 2 quick questions or one longer one. If anyone has anything. Shout out.
Okay. I'm just wondering, Paul, if you... Hi, Paul. I was just wondering if you've observed any sort of general trends or comparisons in international markets between the number of bookings that happen across your website versus the app. You've talked about both. Is there anything that you could share with us?
The website to the app? Yeah. Sure. So I think general trends would be kind of self-evident in the sense that there's a massive shift in mobile. Right? Travel is a laggard for bookings on mobile. E-commerce is way ahead, but it's moving quickly now. So that rate of change is tipping faster than ever before. In key markets like China, and we're lucky enough, one of the few American sort of early stage tech companies to be in China, it's almost 100% mobile. And so we get almost all our bookings from mobile. So you can see how things are changing. And I think one important takeaway to me for everyone in this room would be this. It would be, if your business works in China, many of you, especially agencies, I expect you'll have a division in China. You should be watching it really closely. because they're becoming the leading indicator for where the market's going. They're doing things on mobile that the rest of us aren't doing yet. And so we're really passionate about that, and we're making a huge investment in China because of that.
Down the bottom you've got TV. TV is remarkably resilient. It's very easy to discount television. But in fact, television still accounts for about 4 hours of viewing every day. But you can see that for the first time in 2015, the amount of vertical viewing on people's phones actually exceeded the amount of desktop viewing. And that's particularly relevant for content creators. We're largely transitioning them from a horizontal world to a vertical world. And that's something that, to a large extent, brands and content creators haven't yet managed to wrestle with. There's another change here. We're seeing just a vast increase in the volume of video that people are seeing. So not only are they consuming screens, but they're also consuming video on their screens. There's a 13-fold increase predicted by 2019, but in fact, just on a social product like Twitter, we saw a 220 times increase last year, so that's not percent, that's times, just a complete tsunami of video being consumed on people's phones. Really, a pace of revolution I don't think we've witnessed before. And the reason why that's especially relevant is it's the contrast between linear change and algorithmic change. Or the linear change and exponential change. The way that people often relate this, and they try and make it easy for you to understand, is that 30 steps taken in a linear way, where each successive step is the same as the one before, will take you 30 meters. 30 steps taken in an exponential way, where each step doubles the step before, will take you 13 times around the world. So when we are seeing that 220-fold increase in a year, the patterns of behaviour and the way people are using the devices in their pocket is being disrupted more than ever before. Another illustration of how we think we understand how people are using devices and how it's confounded by user behaviour is this example here. So Kanye West came to the UK just a few months ago for the Brit Awards, and he turned up like a lot of people do. Part of their visit now is to go and sample the spicy chicken that they sell in the chain Nando's. Kanye West went into a very popular chain and in fact stood on the counter and instructed everyone who wanted to take a photo to take their photo there and then. And in itself, that's sort of a sort of fairly everyday experience of celebrity. But the one thing we observed that probably was unexpected was that everyone in the restaurant, here's some footage that someone recorded, everyone in the restaurant though did something that I think probably wouldn't be your first expectation. So everyone turned their back on him. And the reason why everyone turned their back on Kanye West, so you've got this remarkable thing where the most famous person in the city is standing 3 meters behind someone. Everyone turned their back on them, and it's because the pattern of behaviour that's now so well established is that people want to be in the photo with Kanye West. Taking a photo of him is no longer good enough. Now it needs to be me and Kanye West. So the selfie has become a defining part. And why that's particularly relevant is because that while we've got devices in our pockets and we think we're understanding patterns of human behaviour, often the way that people in aggregate are demonstrating those patterns is different to what you might initially expect. So here's another campaign. This is for Visa. Zach King, who's the star of the first one, is really the sort of the pioneer of a lot of very simple, very effective CGI and sort of optical illusions. He's a highly coveted star, and I think probably his flair is that he adapts it into a lot of executions that last 6 seconds. Simple creativity.
So what are we doing this weekend?
Happy birthday!
Oh no, it's your birthday.
Oh, thank you.
So if you need to try and empathise, I think, with the mindset that these ads are being consumed. They're being consumed in someone's feed, and that might be in Vine, in Twitter and Instagram. But you can see that they're actually achieving an incredibly strong reach, largely because the creators that we're working with are responding to brief, but they're also they've got a vast following in their own right. Another one here, so these actually are slightly different. Perrier wanted to just articulate beautiful aesthetics, so you can see that the format of the others is quite a counterpoint. This first one is Pino, who's an animator. Really simple, sits in someone's feed as they scroll through. This was from Megan Signoli. Very simple ad. And the final one I'll show you is a campaign that ran for Comcast X1, and they wanted to show their new device that effectively seamlessly allows you to watch shows on your home TV set, but also then carry them with you. And the interesting thing about this is that if you search Comcast X1, and if you search that on Twitter, on Vine, you'll actually see that there's about 30 different executions from different creators. So the way that would work is that effectively, by seeing this vast volume of discussion from people that maybe you're already following, some of the funniest people on those platforms, it adds and it aggregates into the impact of a normal TV campaign without necessarily looking and feeling like the highly slick, polished effect. So this is first one by Rhind.
I love scary movies. Sorry.
Another one here by Zach.
Oh, guys, game's already on. Let's throw it on the big screen. Andrew, how many makes a platform? Sure.
And the interesting thing about this is that we've seen incredible results for it. So it very much is probably an acceleration into something that you'd not considered. And the reason why I sort of aggregated all those trends at the start is that probably to a large extent, some of this creativity might be passing you by. We've like I say, we've got 31,000 creators signed up. Some of these people are earning a colossal amount of cash from doing this, and largely they're dropping into the social media streams of people who sort of post-millennial audience on a vast volume. The impact of it is really significant, and the reason why we're getting some of the biggest brands in the world now to try this out is because it's having a massive effect on brand lift. We're seeing sort of a 56% average boost in brand awareness amongst the people exposed to it. So big changes and sort of a big evolution there. The final thing I'm going to finish on is just a forward-looking note regarding Twitter. So I've talked about some of these big trends, and probably the big thing for us right now is the evolution of live. Twitter's always been the place, whether a big news item breaks or a big TV show is on air, Twitter's always been the place that you open to see what's happening right now, to see what people are talking about. And in fact, that's what we're really focusing on. We know more than ever before that when the Eurovision Song Contest is on, there were 25% more tweets this year than last year. It's the place where people go to hear live conversation. And as I talked about at the start, the world of social media is evolving, it's maturing. We now recognise that it's not a one-size-fits-all product, that people open some products for some things, some for others. I think it's pretty clear that Twitter's place in the world is to celebrate what's happening right now, to celebrate the live. So you're going to see a lot more evolution of that in the next 12 months. We've done a deal with the NFL to bring live American football games to people's screens, and the viewing experience we've built for that is extraordinary. So expect far more of that, expect far more of us building an experience that tries to complement what's happening in the world right now. I think that's where you're going to see Twitter really keep developing and keep innovating in the next 12 months.